Hello, welcome to my self-titled YouTube channel. I am the eponymous Fiona. Thank you for joining me today as we go on a deep dive into Elliott from Stardew Valley. Fuck yeah, I'm getting better at that. We're going to be looking at his likes, his dislikes, him as a character, his dialogue, his heart events, the kind of through lines that run through them, everything we possibly can. I am an unemployed game writer. I don't know if that gives me credibility or not. Probably not. So we're also going to be looking at the narrative design choices behind it, getting a little bit analytical at points. Not too much. It's still fun. It's still fun. If you haven't played Stardew Valley, I would recommend going back to the first video in this series. This is number 3. The first video was on Alex and it has this nice section where I talk through how the game works, how the gameplay works, some like important terms, just so you can kind of have an understanding of where I'm coming from going forwards. It's not 100% vital, but if you haven't played the game, you may as well. You don't have to start with Elliott. He's not the best one. I'm not giving you homework, you don't have to. You can stay here. Stay with me. Recommended viewing, I suppose. But if you have played the game, or you watch those videos, or you're just obsessed with Elliott and you just want to get right into it, or you don't like me telling you what to do, then stick around. We are going to get right into Elliott. I've got a very Elliott-esque fit on today. Oh, I did a side parting. I haven't done a side parting since I was like 13. I've been trying to like vaguely link the outfits. I just don't have that many clothes. No, it's not true. I have a lot of clothes.
Nick, it's not that hard, man. Just sit down and write. You ain't Hemingway.
You boys are right. I gotta be more like Hemingway.
Sorry, I did a side parting because he's got one, but I can't do it. I can't do it. Sorry to all the side parting girlies out there. I'm not one of you. So as with all the videos in this series, we're going to start off with Elliott's synopsis from the devlog. Elliott lives alone in a cabin on the beach. He is a writer who dreams of one day writing a magnificent novel. He is a sentimental romantic with a tendency to go off onto flowery, poetic tangents. When he can afford it, he enjoys a strong beverage at the saloon. Could a humble farmer such as yourself be the inspiration Elliott is looking for? There's only one way to find out. Fight! That's one for my Brits out there. So as the devlog says, Elliott is a writer. He moved to Stardew Valley to work on his novel. He felt like living in isolation in this beautiful place would help him write. I'm kind of new to this town myself, but I really feel at home. I moved here only a year before you. He's older than Abigail and Alex, who are the 2 characters we've covered so far. There's a note you can find from someone's diary in the game that says that there are a few older bachelors in town, and quote, none of them are perfect, which is such a diss. It's true. It's not wrong. I'm not sure whose diary it is. I don't think it really matters. Probably Haley. I don't know. So the note describes Elliott as a bit foppish and melodramatic, but he does have a nice chin. He likes crab cakes and pomegranates. That's his chin. It's alright. Sharp. So it described him there as foppish. A brief tangent about the word foppish. I promise it's brief. Stick with me. According to the Oxford English Dictionary, the word fop was first used in 1440, and Shakespeare was the first one to coin the term foppish in 1608. The term fop kind of goes hand in hand with the term dandy. There are most likely nuances between the 2 terms, but I wasn't paying that much attention during my English literature degree, so. Dandy and fop both refer to people who dress in beautiful, expensive clothes and are very proud of their appearance. So it's a negative phrase, it's a negative descriptor, it's pejorative. Fop and dandy both kind of came about in that time in Britain when people were becoming more equal. The dandy was seen as kind of rebelling against that idea by maintaining his interest in aesthetics as a way of kind of setting himself apart. You know, like as all men are created equal, as a statement started to spread in popularity. It then became unpopular for men to get all tarted up and look fancy. And that kind of continues to this day. We still very much look down on men who care too much about their appearance. Hence, foppish is still being used in that same way and being directed towards Elliott here. You know, it's a deep dive when we get into the etymology of a single word. I've got to use my degree for something, Jesus. But if we just take foppish as its definition, dress in beautiful, expensive clothing and are very proud of their appearance, Elliott does very much fit this. You can see that from his sprite that he's wearing this kind of coat and tails get-up, and he's obsessed with his hair. I'll admit, it takes me several hours each morning to make my hair look this good. I have to brush my hair daily, or else it'll clump up into messy knots. It's a lot of work. I'm surprised I haven't just shaved it off in a fit of passion. I suppose I am too vain. Look, number 1, same. Number 2, Elliott, you gotta learn how to plait. It's a game changer. So from this note, we can see that Elliott is one of the older bachelors, along with Harvey and Shane, which basically means that it's the guys in town who are above like 25. I'm an older bachelor. Squad. So these are our older bachelors. These are our younger bachelors. Pick a side. Don't make me choose. Dream blunt rotation. So I honestly genuinely don't know how old Elliott is supposed to be. He seems like a man completely out of time. The sweet friction of pen and paper is the music of my soul. You've come to visit me in the cold? I could do with a respite from my lonely labours. A day can never be boring when you follow the whims of your imagination. Sorry, am I babbling on about nonsense? Like, how are you supposed to tell if this guy is 28 or 50 or a 5,000-year-old vampire? My money's on that one. I find it so funny to think about someone with an American accent saying this kind of thing. Like, this guy is so British coded. The smoky aroma drew me here, yet 'twas the zesty sauce that truly sealed my fate. How can you say that in an American accent and not sound absolutely ridiculous? I sound ridiculous saying it in a British accent. Was the zesty sauce that truly sealed my fate? So if I was going to do a guess of his age, I would say Elliott is anywhere from 27 to like 35. That's a genuine guess. Personal opinion, 28. Personal opinion, 5,000-year-old vampire. So Elliott spends a lot of time in his cabin at the beach at his writing desk. He goes to the saloon quite often as well, every Friday, every Sunday. He's friends with Willie, who runs the fishing shop by his house, and also Leah, who is a romanceable character. We'll get to her. And Elliott and Leah dance together at the flower dance. Notable loves for Elliott. He loves duck feathers and squid ink. I guess he writes with the squid ink. That's the implication though. And we got pomegranates as well. He likes squid, which most people dislike. He's a big fish fan. He dislikes pizza. And he hates sea cucumber. Don't even let this man see a cucumber. Wait. Don't even let this man see a sea cucumber. There we go. He's also one of the only characters in the game and the only romanceable character that has this kind of sideways portrait. Like, this man is entirely in profile. I find it a little confusing. How am I supposed to love him if I can only see one half of his face? Is this a Phantom of the Opera situation? I think it's just a convention of the genre, you know, pixel art, dating sims. It does mean you can see his nice chin. So he's a friendly kind of guy. When you first meet him, he says, "Ah, the new farmer we've all been expecting, and whose arrival has sparked many a conversation. I'm Elliott. I live in the little cabin by the beach. It's a pleasure to meet you." And he's always yammering on about nonsense. A gentle little sunbeam woke me up. A gentle little sunbeam woke me up this morning. I've never felt so refreshed. I'm sorry if that isn't very interesting to you. Oh dear, a tiny crab appears to have made his home in my shirt pocket. That's the trouble with living on the beach. People have scraped a living off the sea for thousands of years. I just go to the grocery store. That's my Elliott voice. So generally we get the impression that he's kind of goofy, but he's self-aware about it. So he tells you, I know that I am kind of an oddball. I hope you don't mind. So, you know, we had Alex, who was goofy without realising it because he's kind of dumb. Sorry, Alex, you have lots of other good qualities. Then we had Abigail, who wasn't, you know, goofy, but she was self-aware about being different. And now we have Elliott, who is self-aware about being kind of goofy. It's a very personal decision whether you love Elliott and you think he's really funny or whether you hate his fucking guts. I was in the latter camp for a long time until I married him, but we'll get there when we get there. We have to go through this one by one to get the whole experience. I'm taking you on a journey. So for now, we'll get into the heart events. So for the 2 heart event, you enter Elliott's cabin while he's there. He welcomes you in. He shows you his writing desk, says he spends most of his time there. He tells you that for as long as he can remember, he's wanted to be a writer, and he moved here to Stardew Valley because a lonely life by the sea might help him focus on writing. People back home said he'd never make it as a writer, that only 1 in 1,000 authors succeed. Elliott condemns their pessimism, calls it sickening. Then he kind of reads you and says that he can see in your eyes that you believe in him. You've got a spark. He calls you inspiring, then has an idea. He asks you what kind of books you like. Remember this. It'll come up later. I mean, I will remind you, it's not a test. I'd appreciate it if you at least tried, though. So I usually answer romance, because, duh, it's true. But this time I answered mystery. Elliott says he'll remember that. Then he changes the subject. He asks if you can look at his plant that's dying. Okay, so another basic 2 heart scene. We learn about Elliott, we learn about his motivations, why he moved to Stardew Valley. He wants to be a writer. He deliberately sought isolation so that he could focus and get his creative mind going. It's clear that people not believing he could make it affected him, and that's definitely also a factor in why he moved away from his hometown, even though he doesn't explicitly state it to you. He kind of reads into a single look that you give him in this scene, which is giving Desperate vibes. Desperate House vibes. Like he's kind of seeing what he wants to see. He looks at you and he says, I can just tell that you believe in me. And he obviously wants someone to believe in him. It would be one thing if you had a choice and you could tell him, I believe in you. Like with Alex in the 2 Heart scene. But you don't get that choice here. He just kind of assumes. So yeah, it's clear that he's looking for someone who believes in him. It's kind of sad. He's quite isolated and he needs that kind of encouragement. So he finds it even when you're not necessarily giving it to him. For a 2 Heart scene, this is kind of jumping in quite near the deep end in terms of friendship, compared to Alex's 2 Heart telling you he's going to go pro, Abigail's 2 Heart where you play a video game together, Elliott's kind of talking to you like you're best mates already. We'll get some more clarity on this as we move forwards, but as I said, I'll be revealing things as they are revealed in-game. So for right now, cool, I have a very intense friend called Elliott, and we'll move on to the 4 Heart scene. And this is where I'll explain why this guy kind of sucks, okay? So you're at the saloon alone when in walks Elliott. He says, hello, what a pleasant surprise. He's been writing for 8 hours, so needs a break. He says to Gus, 2 of your finest ales, please. And Gus is like, okay, you are just getting a beer, my guy. Elliott proposes a toast. You get a choice. To Pelican Town, to our friendship, to my good health, to your doom. I've never been brave enough to say to your doom, but according to the wiki, he just responds, forget it, and you lose 50 friendship points. If you say to our friendship, you get the most points, and he's super happy because, as we established, he's giving despo. So I just picked in this scene to toast to Pelican Town, and he calls it a virtuous idea, and we toast and drink. Then he starts doing a little dance, and the player laughs. Tipsy vibes, messy one with Elliott. Okay, so this seems fine, right? Cute, sweet, I'm on the lash with my 5,000-year-old vampire friend. But if you play this scene as a woman, as I have done most of the time, when he orders the drinks, he doesn't order 2 ales. He orders 1 ale and then he orders a wine for the lady. Not only does he not ask you what you want to drink, but he just assumes that you don't like beer and that you would want a wine instead because you're a woman. Like, it just rubs me the wrong way. It really annoys me. To be fair, I personally do like wine more than beer. But he doesn't ask. He just assumes because you're a girl. It's such a tiny thing, but it just really sours me on the guy. Like, he's got this pretentious attitude that could be seen through a more appreciative lens. You know, he's funny, he's kind of kooky. I like your funny words, Magic Man. But if we think that he's also maybe kind of sexist, it kind of puts that old-fashioned element of him in a different light. What else is he old-fashioned about? What are his values? To be clear, none of the rest of his dialogue or cutscenes or anything else in the game reinforces this idea that he's, you know, an old-fashioned kind of guy, that he is sexist. It's just a tiny little thing that only happens this one time, and I really just wish that it wasn't in the game. It would have taken more effort to code that his line would change based on your gender than it would have done to just leave it the same and he always orders you 2 beers. Like, Shane gives you a beer in his 2 Heart scene. He doesn't give you a wine if you're a girl, because he's a king. We'll get there. He's alphabetically last. We'll get there. Anyway, let's try and ignore that part of it and we'll look at the scene as a whole. He's continuing that vibe in this scene of really wanting a friendship with you. He says it's a nice surprise to see you, he orders you a drink, he wants to do a toast with you, he gets really happy if you toast your friendship. It's also reinforced because after that 8 hours of work he did, he's going out, he's socialising instead of just collapsing onto his bed. So I guess he's an extrovert, he's looking for people to hang out with. It's also notable that he's been writing so much. He mentioned in dialogue before that he hadn't even started writing his book. I can't seem to find the inspiration to begin writing my novel. But in the 2 Heart scene, he said that you inspired him, and now he's been writing for 8 hours. So I guess that spark that he saw in your eye really meant something to him. It seems like a little encouragement was all he needed to get started. Like, he used to live somewhere where all the people didn't believe in him, and so he moved to Stardew Valley. And he thought that isolation would help him write. but it seems like the discouragement was what was blocking him instead of the lack of isolation. You know, it's not like he needed to be in this cabin completely on his own. He just needed someone to believe in him. When he moved to Stardew Valley, he kind of cut himself off a little bit. But now that isolation is starting to lift through your friendship, he's finding that inspiration. Okay, onto the sixth heart. So the sixth heart scene takes place in his cabin as well. Elliott's playing the piano. He stops when he realises you're there. You get a choice. That was wonderful. How long have you been playing? I picked that was wonderful. He seems happy with the compliment. He says he's not very good at it, but it's fun to play. Then he confesses that he's been working hard on the book and it's driving him insane. Playing the piano occasionally is the only recreation he allows himself, because he's got so much to do and his bank account is running dry. He says sometimes he wishes he could throw it all away and become a farmer. You get another choice. It's just as hard to be a farmer, you know. Come live on the farm, I could use the extra help. Usually I pick the first one because, I don't like him that much. And he apologises and says that he just wanted to experience real life. This time I picked the second choice and he seems tempted, but he says he's determined to finish his novel. Then he apologises for complaining and says he needs someone to talk to every now and then. And we fade to black. So same as how it was with Abigail, this piece of music that Elliott is playing is his musical theme. It's just called Piano Solo. First of all, he's quite pessimistic in this scene, when in the two-heart scene he called pessimism sickening. He does eventually get over it and tell you that he's determined to finish his novel, so clearly he's not so discouraged as to just completely give up. He says he just wanted to talk it through with you. I guess Elliott's already aware of that lesson that Alex ended up learning, which is that talking things through, getting thoughts out of your head gives them less of a hold on you, makes things seem clearer. Because Elliott, by the end of the scene, it seems like he's worked through it. It seems like he's got his priorities sorted out in his own head. With Elliott, it seems like he doesn't quite know what's best for himself. He moved to a lonely cabin on the beach, thinking that the isolation would help him write. He's pushing himself very hard. He's routinely writing for 8 hours at a time. He's always telling you that his legs are stiff from sitting at his writing desk for too long. The only fun he allows himself is the piano and the occasional drink at the saloon. But he's ignoring the fact that it was the interaction with the player in the two-heart event that led him to even start writing. Before that two-heart event, he had been living here for a whole year and he hadn't written anything at all. He hadn't even started writing the book. And even now in the six-heart event, he seems happy just to have someone to talk to. He even comments on wanting to experience real life, which could refer to getting out of the cabin and talking to people. It's interesting because there's the archetype, the stereotype almost, of the isolated writer. And it's like he's got that in his head, that's how people succeed. Kind of like the suffering writer also, that he's pushing himself so hard and he's restricting his activity so much. Like, you just know that this dude is obsessed with Hemingway.
I'm becoming Ernest Hemingway. You idiots.
Brief side note, Elliott, T.S. Eliot? Question mark? But if you've ever done a creative project, then you know, as well as I do, that even just bouncing ideas off someone can be really helpful. It's so much harder to just toil away in a room on your own. This is a theme with Elliott that's more hinted at subtly than it is directly addressed. Elliott comments a lot when you're married that he's feeling inspired and he's seemingly writing more than ever. It doesn't come up in any of his heart events, so I think it's kind of a subtextual element, one that neither he or the player is overtly picking up on or communicating about, which adds a nice depth to the story and the character. It's that kind of subtlety. It doesn't have to be spelled out to us. I also want to touch on the money element to this scene. He's been working himself so hard because he says that his bank account's running dry, he's running out of money. But there's no guarantee that his book will make any money and will just solve all of his financial problems. I think a lot of us know that feeling of pouring your heart and soul into a creative project and having these vague ideas of some kind of monetary return at some point, but really just having to reckon with the fact that most likely you're just doing it for yourself and for your own enjoyment and you won't really make any money off of it. Exhibit A. Elliott does seem to depend financially on the book though. He says that his bank account is running dry, therefore he's been working really hard to try and finish it. Or maybe he means that he wants to get the book out of the way so that he can get a different job, but he doesn't do that when the book is finished, so that's probably not what he means. Either way, money is an issue to him, which is quite refreshing when so far we've talked about Alex and Abigail who are living with their families and don't have to worry about, rent, bills, things like that. Like, Elliott is one of the older bachelors, and I think that's reflected in this part of his story. Older bachelor, more mature problems. He does still have that internal struggle like Alex and Abigail do, but he's also got the very real external pressure of money that more mature players will be able to relate to. The fact that he also thinks about throwing it all away is an interesting reflection of the creative process. You know, you get to a point in a project where you're like, fuck this shit, chuck it in the bin, I never want to see it again. Like, you start hating the project almost because you've been staring at it for so long. And you've almost put so much of yourself into it that all you see when you look at it is your own flaws staring back at you. Maybe that's just me. I also think it's interesting to briefly touch on the development of Stardew Valley. This is getting quite meta, but humour me. So I'm sure you know that this game was made by one person. It's kind of a famous thing at this point. If you don't, this game was made by one person. Oh my god. So the guy who made the game worked on it alone, 10-hour days, 70-hour weeks for 4.5 years. And there's a quote from an interview with him from gamedeveloper.com. There were times during development that I didn't feel like working, that I even wanted to quit entirely. And that's totally how Elliott is feeling here, right? He kind of just wants to quit. Everyone making every project ever, I think, has had that feeling. I bet Da Vinci had that feeling when he was painting the fucking Mona Lisa, you know? Da Vinci?
Da Vinci?
Da Vinci? There are like a million other comparisons that I could draw between interviews with the developer about the making of the game and some stuff that Elliott says, but I'm not going to keep doing that because that feels weird and parasocial to me. So we're going to leave it there with that one point. I think this is a good cutscene about Elliott's flaws as a character, how he is pushing himself too hard and ignoring the signs that he needs a rest, he needs a break. He needs to socialise, he needs to live real life. It's also interesting how he comments that he's not very good at the piano. I'm not very good, but it's fun to play. First of all, he obviously is pretty good, so we've discovered Elliott can be humble. New information. Second of all, he's got this hobby of playing the piano. His writing was most likely a hobby for him for a long time before he decided to pursue it as a career. But the piano thing is just for fun. He's not pushing himself 8 hours a day with it like he is with the writing. It's a break for him, it's a respite, it's just a bit of fun. In Alex's video, we talked about monetizing your hobbies, how he saw Gridball as a career and that ended up kind of sucking the joy out of it for him. And then he was able to enjoy it again once he stopped putting that pressure on himself. With Elliott, he's clearly not enjoying writing at the moment. He's driving himself insane because he's put that monetary pressure onto it for himself. But with the piano, there isn't that pressure. He's just playing for the enjoyment of it. Here in late stage capitalism, it's so hard to do anything and not think about monetizing it. I'm so guilty of this as well. I wrote my 100,000 word Stardew Valley fanfiction and I started Googling, how do you make money off of fanfiction? You can't. Like, our energy is so precious. Our labor is so undervalued. The economy is so fucked that it's just so natural to pursue money at every opportunity because that is the thing that everyone needs to make their lives better, to ease your anxiety, to pay your bills. Money doesn't buy happiness, but like it kind of does. And Elliott is trying to monetize his writing. We can't really blame him for that. But with the piano, he's not putting pressure on himself for that. He's just playing it for pure enjoyment. And that has value in itself. It's not just a waste of time, even though I'm sure he sees it as a waste of time. You need breaks. You need rest. Even if you're trying to be super productive, even if you're on that grind set, every study into productivity has shown you still need to rest. Everyone needs to rest. It's not a waste of time. It's part of the process. So overall, I like this scene as a look into that creative process. My partner and I talk about this stuff a lot, like the creative process. And so it's understandable and very normal here that Elliott just kind of wants to vent to you about how his novel's driving him insane. But that doesn't mean that he doesn't love it. That doesn't mean he's not going to keep working on it. He's got that drive to finish it. You can complain all you want about a project that you're working on, but at the end of the day, you can still really love it. Now that you have 6 hearts with Elliott, you unlock some new dialogue. We'll go through it quickly, like a lightning round. 3, 2, 1, go. Breathe deeply. Do you notice it? That's the smell of the sea. Whenever I smell the sea, it reminds me of my youth. The ocean really impressed me as a child. So we can assume that he moved to the beach, partly because of how much he loved the ocean when he was a child, which links to how he says he's wanted to be a writer as long as he can remember. So he's a guy who hasn't lost that youthful feeling of wanting to go after your dreams. He's still pursuing that childhood dream. He's still seeking out places that he enjoyed as a child. He's very connected to his inner child. Maybe he moved next to the ocean in order to write because of the smell, because the smell reminds him of his youth, kind of gives him that motivation, that energy, connects him with that younger self. Player, I know you have faith in my abilities as a writer. That means a lot to me. So once again, he kind of fabricates your faith in him out of nowhere, like in the 2-heart scene. We never get a choice of, I believe in you. I don't know, maybe the player and Elliott have conversations that we don't get to hear, where you tell him, I think your writing's really good. But we can see again here that people having faith in him is a big deal to him, which I think again links to that conversation we had about the creative process. Having someone there cheering you on, enjoying your work really does make such a difference when you're working on something. Some people are shy. Keep showing interest in them and they'll get comfortable around you. Everyone likes to have friends, even that grumpy blacksmith. So the grumpy blacksmith he's referring to is Clint. We'll get into Clint in the next video where we do Emily. Fuck you, Clint. So Elliott isn't talking about himself here in this piece of dialogue. He was never a shy person. He's always been super friendly towards you. I guess since he's a guy who wants friends, is seeking friendships, he's also got that radar turned on for other people who want friends. This is also, I think, kind of a gameplay cue to the player. Like, some characters aren't super friendly to you. You might just give up, but it's a cue saying, don't give up. The more you talk to them, the nicer they'll get, which is true. It's possible that at this point the player has 6 hearts with Elliott because he's been super keen to be your friend, he's so friendly, and you also have 0 hearts with Shane because he's only told you to go away. And Elliott is like, hey, make some other friends too. Which is nice that he doesn't feel like he has to be your only friend. He sees value in friendship as a whole. Sometimes I wonder if I might just have an inflated self-image and no real skills. No, I'm not fishing for compliments, though they are appreciated. Okay, fucking same. He's just like me. Relatable king. He says here he doesn't feel like he has any real skills. I think here he's referring to hard skills, you know, like construction, coding, anything a bit more marketable than writing. Writing as a skill is so confusing because it's something pretty much anyone can do. I swear there's a part about this in the recent H-Bomber guy James Summerton video, that writing doesn't seem like a skill to people who do it because it just comes so naturally. But it is a skill, because those that can't do it plagiarize. So the fact that Elliott wonders if he has no real skills, just an inflated self-image, is very relatable to me as a writer. It's probably very relatable to most writers. He thinks in the 6 heart scene about throwing it all away and just working on a farm. You have to be quite resilient to pursue this stuff full time. There's a lack of stability to it, so of course self-doubt is going to end up creeping in. But you know, you have faith in him. He ultimately has faith in himself. So he does end up finishing his novel. Speaking of. Elliott sends you a letter saying that his novel is finished, and he's doing a reading in the library this afternoon. He hopes to see you there. If you go along to the library, a bunch of the townspeople are there. Like, not everyone, but around 2/3 of the population. Elliott's happy to see you, tells you that he's so relieved to be done with the book. It's like an elephant's been lifted off his shoulders. He looks around, seems to get a bit freaked out. I mean, look at his face. And he says he's going to get started with the reading. Wish him luck. He stands in front of everyone, says hello, and tells us that ever since he was a young boy, he's dreamed of being a writer. Then he says that when the time came for him to leave home and start his own life, he came to Pelican Town. He hopes that the days of quiet reflection in this idyllic atmosphere would fan the literary flames. Pause briefly. We'll get back to the scene in a second, but he says when the time came for him to leave home and start his life, that could be referencing when he came of age, when he turned 18. And he said he only moved here a year ago. So there is a universe in which this man is 19 years old. But I absolutely do not believe that for 1 second. Look at him! Is that a 19-year-old? No. You're crazy. Plus, he's an older bachelor. So I guess he's just referring to leaving his hometown instead of necessarily his childhood home. Or maybe he lived at home with his family until he was, 27. I don't know. Let's keep going. I just had to address that. 19. 19-year-old Elliott is going to haunt my nightmares. Elliott introduces us to his new book. It's called Blue Tower, and it's a mystery novel set in a surreal dystopian future. Pause again. Sorry. Do you remember what I told you to remember? Okay, I told you to remember how in the 2 heart scene, he asks you what kind of book you like. For this playthrough, I answered mystery. And that answer is directly correlated to the fact that he has written a mystery book. You get 3 options for that choice: mystery, romance, sci-fi. Your answer changes the genre of his book. We're going to talk about that a lot once I get through this cutscene, but let's continue. Elliott starts to read his book, which I will read for you now in my best Elliott impression. Chapter 1. From the shadows emerged a man, radiating with enigmatic omniscience. "Good evening, Mr. Liu," he said, the corners of his mouth quivering. Liu seemed astonished. "How did you know my name?" Then we get a fade to black and the end of the chapter. Liu checked Jinu's pockets, then stood up and walked into the bedroom. He quickly found the small golden key that he was looking for and slipped it into his coat pocket. That's the end of the reading. Elliott says he's selling signed copies of the book by the front desk. He approaches you, asks you how it was. The player does a little happy emote, which is seemingly a compliment because Elliott says thanks. Then he tells you what I just told you, that you inspired the type of book he wrote. Then he blushes and says he dedicated the book to you. Okay, a lot to unpack here. First of all, we'll start with the narrative design tangent. Get out of the way. I feel bad being critical of this game because it was made by one person, but he seems like a cool guy. So I do not like the way that you inspired the genre of Elliott's book. You did not inspire the genre. You straight up, you chose the genre. Like, this is one of those narrative design things I think sounds good on paper. The player gets to make a difference to the storyline. It shows that Elliott listens to you, that he values your opinion. It's kind of neat how the book changes. But I think it kind of strips his character of any believability. We're supposed to believe that Elliott has wanted to be a writer since he was a child. He moved here specifically to write a book. And he wrote exactly 0 pages for an entire year. No planning or anything. Until the player comes along, says, I like mystery novels, and suddenly he's writing up a storm in that exact genre. All he needed was someone to come along and say, mystery. Number one, I don't believe the logistics of it. That he wouldn't have done any pre-planning or anything, because surely he wouldn't have been able to just switch the genre if he'd had everything planned out. Making characters and plotting and things takes a lot of time and a lot of effort. Elliott says that he hasn't written anything in the whole year he's been here. If he had spent that entire year just planning and not writing, that would make sense. But I don't believe that he had literally nothing. No plan, no genre, nothing written, and the simple prompt that you like mystery is enough to kick him into gear. He might have just started writing without a plan, just jumped right into it. But mysteries are usually very well planned, so either this doesn't really make sense or his book is terrible. But we'll get to that. Number 2, it takes away from his character. What kind of books does Elliott like? What kind of book does he want to write? Is he such a personality vacuum that you saying you like mysteries just kind of directs his process like that? People typically write because they want to express a concept or a piece of themselves, or they want to say something to the world. Especially with a debut novel like this. You'd think this would be something that had been cooking away in his brain for a long time and he's finally putting pen to paper. Even if in the 2-heart scene he isn't actively working on it, I still think it would have been more interesting for him to have this book idea that he's really passionate about and be able to talk to you about it. As it is, it just kind of seems like he likes the idea of being a writer. Number 3, it takes away my suspension of disbelief. Like, when you play the game, you're entering into a pact with it almost, that you're going to take it at face value, that you're not going to pick it apart too much, that you're not going to cinema sins it and be like, why aren't there any bathrooms? When do they pee? When do they shower? You know? You're suspending your disbelief. But you've just made this huge creative decision on Elliott's behalf. It kind of just points out to me as a player that he's just a construct. He's not a real person. It feels like you want the player to feel like they've had an impact on Elliott, but I feel like I've had too much of an impact to the point where it feels like no impact at all because he's not real. I have an idea for what could have been done as an alternative. I'm not trying to rewrite the game or anything. I'm not saying that this is a better idea, but I just want to show you what I mean. So you could have had Elliott in the 6-heart scene when he's complaining about the book say something to the player like, I don't know how Mr. Liu is going to get out of this situation. And he explains the situation, you know, he's kind of written himself into a corner. And then the player gets 3 choices on how to advise him, how you think that he should resolve the conflict. And Elliott agrees with whatever you say, and then that changes the text that's read in the 8-heart scene, and he thanks you, he says, thank you for helping me with that. Like, obviously that's just an example, but that would mean that he's asking you for advice and not the entire genre of the book. And it would also be happening in the 6-heart scene, where you're friends, instead of the 2-heart scene, where you are kind of strangers. And it would also be a more interesting choice for the player, because they get given this situation and it's kind of like a puzzle on how you think the character should get out. It's a more creative choice for you to make as opposed to what's your favourite genre. Like, for example, in one of Sebastian's scenes, there are a bunch of really interesting choices like this to make, where you have to use your critical thinking, and that's so enjoyable and very memorable. But just asking what kind of books you like, it doesn't take a lot of effort on the player's part, and you get that reward from Elliott that you haven't really earned. Okay, I'll stop talking about this now. In my opinion, it's just kind of a weak narrative design decision. That's just my opinion. You can disagree. Now I want to talk about if his book is good. I was originally going to go through and get the text of all 3 of his books, you know, the sci-fi, the romance, the mystery, but that would be too much. That's too much. I could do that in a separate video if anyone is interested. I don't know. But we're just going to have a look at the mystery novel for now. We're going to try and figure out, is it good? Is he a good writer? So let's read it again. I won't do my Elliott impression. Chapter 1. From the shadows emerged a man, radiating with enigmatic omniscience. "Good evening, Mr. Liu," he said, the corners of his mouth quivering. Liu seemed astonished. "How did you know my name?" So it's very in media res, meaning it starts bang in the middle of some stuff going on, which I personally enjoy. I have ADHD. You need to grab my attention. I'm not going to want to give it to you. I do have an issue with enigmatic omniscience. So omniscience is the idea that you know literally everything in the universe. I think it's usually used to describe God. Like, he knows everything about you. He knows everything that's happening. He knows if you have a wank. So don't. This man is radiating with enigmatic omniscience before he's even spoken, so how would anyone know that he's omniscient? How would you just sense that? This could be forgiven if it was Elliott's sci-fi book, but this is a mystery, set in a surreal dystopian future. The word surreal is doing a lot of heavy lifting there. Small thing, evening shouldn't be capitalised, but that's not Elliott's fault. There is a lot of random capitalisation in Stardew Valley in general. The corners of his mouth quivering. Is this a smirk? Is this a smile? I guess that kind of leans into the enigmatic element of the character we're not supposed to know, which I like. Liu seemed astonished. Seemed implies that the book has a point of view character. Like, he seemed astonished. That's someone's opinion. Otherwise you'd put Liu was astonished, or just his eyebrows raised or something. But from the rest of the text that we get, I don't think it does have a point of view character, so that's kind of a mistake. Liu checked Jinu's pockets, then stood up and walked into the bedroom. He quickly found the small golden key that he was looking for and slipped it into his coat pocket. This second part has less for us to pick apart, but I think it's kind of uninteresting for him to just tell you that Liu found the key instead of where he found it. That could have told us something interesting about the person who hid it. Or was the key even hidden? Was it just out in the open? Was it hidden at the back of a sock drawer? And we could learn about Liu as well. Where does he check first? What are his instincts telling him? These two pieces of information could have communicated a lot to us, so I think Elliott is kind of missing something here by leaving it out. Also, I just have to say it's kind of hilarious, the like dystopian names. Liu is kind of normal, but Jinu, it feels like Divergent calling the characters For and Triss, you know? Overall, it's hard to judge the book based on how little we get. I don't think I would read it. Is Elliott a bad writer though? It's hard to say, but there is one compelling piece of evidence. People leave the reading. At the beginning, not including the player, there are 18 people there for the reading. At the end of the reading, there are 8 people left. He's lost over half of his audience. Sure, they might have had stuff to do, but he was only reading one chapter, and it's the majority of the audience. I think that's a pretty damning sign that the book is not great. That, coupled with what I said before about how he's most likely done no prior planning and the book was written very quickly, I think means that we can conclude that Elliott's book is not necessarily bad, but it's just not great. It's not entertaining enough for people to stick around, even if they were trying to support him. And I don't think his book has to be good. I think it's kind of interesting that it's bad. He seems happy with it. He says an elephant has been lifted off his back. He's achieved his goal. He finished something. He put it out into the world. That's an achievement. Maybe the message here is that even if the piece of art isn't everyone's cup of tea, at least you made a piece of art. That's more than most people can say. The alternative is to just not make art, and the world is better for having more art in it. So in the scene itself, Elliott is very nervous to share his work, but ultimately once he gets up there, he's okay, it goes fine. It's very true to the writer experience. It's so hard to get over that hurdle of sharing your work with others. Even now, outside of work, it still makes me cringe. But he manages it. He reads his book to all those people that he knows, which takes a lot of guts. I don't think I could read my writing in front of 20 people that I know in real life. I think I would just fold in on myself like a piece of paper and float away in the breeze. And he says finishing the book is like an elephant off his back, which reinforces what we said in the 6 Heart about creative projects becoming more of a burden. A lot of projects go unfinished, so it's really commendable that he finished it, and now he gets to relax, reap the proceeds, play the piano. Good for you, Elliott. So that was Elliott's 8 Heart event, so we've come to the end of Elliott's Platonic Heart events, the arc from 2 Hearts to 8 Hearts. Here's just the story of an aspiring writer who isolates himself to toil away at his novel, but doesn't actually get that spark of inspiration that he needs until he meets the player and breaks that isolation. So we can see that through line of him opening himself up, of learning that there's value in collaboration and in talking about your projects. That isolation isn't going to lead to good results. He's a guy who obviously really values friendship, but he goes through that hard process of creating something and also the monetary struggles that often accompany that process. We get to see his doubts about the project, we get to see him struggle with it, we get to see him think about quitting, but ultimately finish the project and feel that sense of relief. You get a piece of dialogue when you have 8 Hearts with him. It's a little lonely out here on the beach, so I apologise if I was ever a little too forward with you when we first met. I was just eager to have a friend. It feels good to have a close friend like you. So this recontextualises all the way back to the two heart scene. You know, we said he was giving desperate vibes? Well, that's because he was desperate. He was eager to have a friend because he was a lonely boy. We did pick up on this through the text, but, you know, it's nice to have confirmation. And he apologises for being too forwards. I don't know if I'm going to forgive him. We'll see. I'll think about it. I guess he's telling you this now at 8 hearts because you are close friends. It's one thing to come on strong like he did in the 2 heart scene, but it would be a whole other thing if he'd said to you, I'm eager to have a friend, please be my friend. That would have made you run a mile. But now that you're actually friends, he can say, this is what my motivations were. Sorry for being so desperate. I know you'll forgive me because we're friends. I'm still thinking about it, Elliott. I do like Elliott's story. In these 4 short scenes, he really bears his soul to you. He goes through that torturous process of making something. I guess the things that make me feel kind of iffy about it are, number 1, the sexism thing with the bar. And number 2, the way that he just kind of doesn't feel real to me. Like that decision to have you choose the genre of his book. I think that for me personally, it just destroys any appeal he has as a person because he's so clearly not a person. I can see why people love Elliott though. His dialogue can be hilarious. He's such a funny little guy. And he looks hot in his beach portrait. So he's got that going. That's why I put it on here. You're welcome. So let's give this little fop a bouquet. I have a million of them. He's earned it. I've given up trying to get it in the same place every time. So, we give Elliott the bouquet, we start dating. He only has 1 extra piece of dialogue that he says to you. Player, I had a feeling that you would show up. Perhaps we're connected by an otherworldly thread. So, he's a romantic. He's thinking about you a lot. I think it's possible that he's referencing the invisible string theory. Invisible string, tying you to me. So the invisible string theory is the idea that there's some kind of invisible string linking you and the person you're meant to be with. Like fate, very poetic, very flowery, very Elliott. Me likey. So when you get Elliott to 10 hearts, he sends you a note asking you to meet him at the docks on a sunny morning. He's got something in mind. The event triggers when you get to the beach. Elliott's standing by a little rowing boat. He says, hey. He's fixed up the rowboat by his house and wants to take you out on it for the maiden voyage. You get to choose if you want to go on the boat or not. The wiki says that if you click no, you don't want to go on the boat. He says, I see, and the event just ends. One of these days I'm going to do that. So I got on the boat with him. You're out on the water, and he says his book's not a bestseller, but it's been getting good reviews. He says he couldn't have finished it without your support. Then he takes it back, says he would have finished it either way. But he's grateful that you believed in him. And, well, how does he say this? You've been friends for a while now, but he's not sure if he feels that way about you anymore. The player reacts as alarmed, and Elliott reassures that no, he's not saying he wants to cut all ties. In fact, it's the opposite. He struggles to put it into words, says for once, he's lost for words. Then he kisses you. He says, you're trembling. And you get a choice. I'm happy. You're making me very uncomfortable. Stop. I chose I'm happy. I was playing as a man, so he says, I was worried you wouldn't feel this way about another man. You kiss for a while longer, and we fade to black. Elliott says you better head back before the southern wind picks up. Then he says the valley from here finally looks like home. What a day. Okay, my CinemaSins counter is going off again, so we'll just go through that quickly first. I won't do the sound effect again, it gives me a headache. He says he would have finished the book either way. No, he wouldn't. He moved here a year ago and he hadn't written a single word. Seemingly he hadn't even had an idea. He didn't even know the genre until the 2-heart event where you inspire him. It could just be Elliott not realising where the inspiration comes from, but he does tell you in the 8-heart scene that you are the reason that he wrote the book that he did. So it's kind of confusing messaging. The only interpretation I can take really is that it's his ego, that he doesn't want to give you all the credit. You know, he doesn't like the feeling that if you hadn't come along, he wouldn't have written it because it was his goal, it's his project. It almost feels as if the writing here is trying to undo the things that it did wrong earlier, like giving the player too much agency over Elliott's life and his book. But you can't really just undo that with dialogue stating the opposite thing. The fact is, he wouldn't have written it without you. He couldn't have finished it without you. He wouldn't even have started. So to have him say the opposite here is confusing. Secondly, he says that it finally feels like home here when he has mentioned before that Stardew Valley feels like home. He says it one of the first times that he talks to you. I'm kind of new to this town myself, but I really feel at home. Maybe that was a lie. Maybe he was just making conversation. Finally, he says that he's lost for words for once, but he didn't write anything for a whole year. I'm pretty lost for words then. Anyway, the fact that he's fixed up this rowboat is probably because he's not working on his book anymore. He's got time to do other things, when previously he would only let himself write and play the piano. He says the book isn't a bestseller, but it's getting good reviews. I feel like the fact that a bunch of people left his book reading is surely a sign that it wouldn't get good reviews. Maybe this is another instance of his ego getting the better of him, like he's just reading the good reviews. Or maybe he's just trying to look on the bright side of things, ignore the haters. The fact that it's not a bestseller surely means that he wouldn't be making a ton of money, but his worries about his bank account aren't mentioned in this scene. So I think we can infer that he's at least got enough to live on. He seems happy with the book at least. It seems like the thing that means the most to him is just that he finished the book at all. You know, he referred to it in the 8-heart scene as an elephant off his back. In that 6-heart scene, he almost gave up. He almost kind of fell victim to that negative mindset. That's the point where a lot of people would have given up, and the point where a lot of people do give up. But he managed to push through despite the doubt, despite the pessimism from his hometown. And now he can rest. And that's what he's doing out here on this boat with you. He says you've been friends for a while now, but he's not sure if that's how he feels anymore. So it's not an Alex situation where he was like drawn to you as soon as he met you. You were friends first and the feelings kind of developed alongside that, most likely because you're the person who believed in him the most. He can't put his feelings into words, which is interesting because he does talk a lot. He's got all these long ass dialogue lines, using all these big words. He's always keen to talk to you, but when it comes to his feelings, he can't get anything out. He just acts. He kisses you. So he's nervous. I don't think his verbose nature is like a mask or like a shell or anything like that. I think he's just like that because he's like that even after you marry him. So yeah, I guess he's just nervous. He feels strongly. He can't get the words out for once. I don't know if there's much else we can read into that. It's not like he's had an arc of not feeling like he can act or using his words as like a shield. I think it's simply he's overwhelmed by his feelings for you. So he just kisses you. And that's fine. That happens in other scenes. You've given him the bouquet, you've signalled your romantic interest. It's pretty typical for a 10-heart scene, you know, you just kiss, you don't get the option. I just don't love the whole trembling thing. If you pick the option that says that he's making you uncomfortable, it kind of paints a picture of he's taken you out on a boat in the middle of the ocean, he's kissed you without your consent, and you hate it so much, you're so uncomfortable that you're physically shaking.
She looks around her, what does she see? Nothing but open ocean. There's nowhere for me to run. What am I gonna do, say no?
Even if you don't say you're uncomfortable, if you say you're happy, why are you shaking? Sorry, trembling. It just comes across awkwardly to me. If you wanted a dialogue choice here, you could have had him ask if he could kiss you. Or if you wanted to keep the spontaneity of the kiss, you could have had him just kiss you and then afterwards you can say if you feel the same way. Or you could have just had him kiss you and that's the end of it, like the other scenes, like an Abigail scene. Having the dialogue option of you're making me very uncomfortable, stop, just kind of ruins the moment because even by reading it, it makes you think, oh yeah, he didn't ask. He just kind of kissed me on this boat surrounded by no one. She's not going to say no. She would never say no.
Because of the implication.
I think a generous interpretation of this scene is that you do get consent. You get to tell him, stop it. But surely it would have been better to do that before he kissed you. We've been placing the 10-heart scenes so far into two camps. You get to say, I feel the same, I don't feel the same. Or you don't get that choice, it's just assumed that you feel the same. But here it's kind of both. You don't get the choice, and then you do get the choice afterwards, too late, to the point where it kind of just highlights to you the fact that you didn't get that choice before the kiss. You didn't have any control. It's just kind of messy. It feels a bit uncomfortable. He's making me uncomfortable. Stop. We'll move on from this now. So he says he was worried you might not feel the same way about another man. Very different to Alex repressing his feelings. Elliot has no issue with his attraction to men. He just didn't know if the player would feel the same way, which is very real. The feeling of trying to get the vibe off of the person that you like. Like, do you listen to Mitski? Oh my God, I love Janelle Monáe. She's my icon. And just having no idea if they're ever going to feel the same way. But he's pleasantly surprised. It just goes to show that no one in this town ever talks about their sexuality. They're all just secretly bi. We're going to cover that way, way, way more when we talk about Leah. But we'll leave it for now. Then Elliot says, the valley looks like home. This is a sweet line. I think it's meant to communicate like it feels like home now that he's with you. And also it feels like home from like out here on the water. I think it's mostly romantic. And I mentioned already that he did refer to Stardew Valley as home, but I guess maybe he's not been feeling that way. He moved here about a year ago, and when things got hard with the book, he thought about quitting the book, throwing the book away. So maybe he's also had thoughts about moving away, moving back to his hometown, or just moving somewhere else. And so it hasn't properly felt like home. I know I get that feeling if something goes wrong in my life and I'm like, that's it. Fuck this shit, I'm moving 500 miles away. But now he's got that settled feeling. He's got things in the town, he's got people in the town that are ties. He says he doesn't want to cut all ties with you, quite the opposite. So you're like a tie to the town, and so he's not going to leave. And so it feels like home. This kind of comes a little bit out of nowhere. He tells you that the town feels like home way back when. He doesn't mention wanting to leave or not feeling settled in any of the other scenes. And I can't really see any of this being foreshadowed necessarily. Regardless, it's a very romantic idea that it all feels like home now that he's with you. He's a romantic guy. He wants to make more of these ties with you. Shall we do it? Okay. So when you propose to Elliott, he says, "The farm will be such a lovely place to write. I'm really looking forward to this. We're going to make a great pair." And he also says, "This is going to be such an adventure. I'm really excited. Aren't you? We can use my cottage as a beach house." His dialogue is all very house related, which I guess makes sense because he seems to really hate where he lives. He refers to it here as a cottage, but he more often refers to it as a cabin. He talks about how it's full of spiders, how it's humid in there, and it's small and the floorboards are growing algae. This also might be another instance of him not necessarily being able to talk about his feelings very well. You'd think if you proposed to Elliott, you would get some dialogue like, "My love, I cannot wait to spend the eternity of my days at your service." But no, he talks about making his house into a beach house. It could also tie to that idea of making ties. What's more tying than a house? It's permanent, it's solid. You want to build it strong. You want to make it last forever. Like your relationship? I don't know. So, let's get married. So Elliott moves in with you when you get married. His room in your house is about what you'd expect. Books, a little model of a ship. There are also some barrels. Is there beer in there? It's the same kind of barrel that there is at the saloon. Shane is meant to be the alcoholic, but this dude is bringing fucking kegs in his moving truck. He has this little outside area, which is the same as Abigail's little outside area, but she has mushrooms and he has plants. He reads there sometimes. He says it's a lovely day for it. He says at one point when you're married, "Are we doing okay on money, player?" So that anxiety about money is still there. It never really goes away, does it? If you've ever struggled for money, it's so hard to get your brain to switch off of that worry. But he's communicating it with you here. He's seeking that reassurance from you. And presumably you're able to give that reassurance to him because the farm in Stardew Valley basically prints money. So you guys are fine. He has some sweet dialogue as well. "I've been keeping a journal ever since we moved in together. Now that I actually have a life, I have lots to write about. I want to make sure I always remember these years. I feel burnt out in your absence, but when I hear that sound of muddy boots on wood, my heart rises from the ash. When I behold thy wondrous face, a precious jewel of form and grace, my heart, torn by the dread of night, is purified with golden light. Poetry is the only way I can begin to describe my feelings for you." That's nice. Thanks. He starts working on his second novel and he will tell you frequently that he's feeling inspired or he's going to do some writing today. He comments on the landscape often as well. "Today I'm going to continue writing my new novel. What better place than our wonderful farm? This is perfect. I might stay here and write some poetry. I'm feeling a sudden surge of creativity. You go on ahead and take care of business." As far as I can tell, according to the wiki, he doesn't have any low or neutral hearts dialogue. Like, you know how when Abigail's hearts would get low, she'd say, "Maybe I should have got with Sebastian"? He doesn't seem to have anything like that. The dialogue you get from him when his hearts are high is like very extra. "I made a whole secret book of poems expressing my love for you." Like, it seems like if you're low to neutral hearts with Elliott, you get usual Elliott married dialogue, nothing really changes. And high hearts with Elliott when you're married, he's like going into overdrive. "Activate super fop." So overall, he's very happy as your partner. He loves living on the farm. An interesting piece of dialogue you get when his hearts are high is this. "I came to the valley to find the ivory tower from which my talent could reign supreme. But what I really found was a dungeon of loneliness. You saved me from that." So this quote kind of confirms the things that we've been pulling out of the other scenes. He came to Stardew Valley to focus on his craft, focus on his writing, but he just ended up being lonely and isolated, and his relationship with the player pulled him out of that. I think the language of Ivory Tower and Reign Supreme is interesting. It suggests that he has a very high opinion of himself, or at least he did when he moved here. It's possible that that opinion was then humbled when he spent an entire year not writing anything. It ties into that six-heart dialogue that we read before. Sometimes I wonder if I might just have an inflated self-image and no real skills. No, I'm not fishing for compliments, though they are appreciated. I feel like I have to go like this whenever I do his lines. I do think he's a bit pretentious. I do think that he has a sizable ego and maybe his self-image is a bit inflated. But he's a good husband. He's entertaining. He loves you. He loves you. My skill with words is unmatched, yet I can't find the way to properly describe your allure/beauty. See, he's humble enough to admit that even though his skill is unmatched, your beauty is more profound. How humble of him to admit skill is unmatched. This guy's out here writing about enigmatic omniscience, saying that his skill with words is unmatched. If you ever feel bad about yourself in your writing, just think of that. So Elliott's 14 heart scene is very different to everyone else's in that it's mostly communicated through words, which is quite fitting. So when you come out of the farm one day, Elliott's on the porch reading a letter. He's excited because he's been invited to do a reading tour for his book. He says he'll be out of town for a week. He asks if you'll be okay. I said I'll be fine. He says he'll miss you very much and he'll write to you every day. You have a little kiss and he says he's leaving tomorrow morning and he needs to pack. End of scene. It's the setup for the premise of the 14 heart event, which is that he actually does write to you for a whole week. And we have the letters to go through. Fiona, my love. I'm called Fiona because I was playing as a man to see if there was anything different because I usually play as a girl. Fiona. You get it. Fiona, my love. I've just arrived in Grampleton to start the tour. I've forgotten how hectic the city is. The streets are packed with people. They either seem in a mad hurry or lost in a daze, unaware of their surroundings. I miss Pelican Town already. I begin the tour this evening, at a local bookstore. I must admit, I'm becoming a bit nervous at the thought of public speaking. My stomach feels as if it's been twisted into a soft pretzel and doused with spicy cheese dip. Wish me luck. Love, Elliott. P.S. I hope you had a peaceful night and weren't too scared all alone in that big house. First letter. Just a sweet letter. Reinforces the idea that when he gets nervous, he can't speak well. He likes the peace of Pelican Town more than the big city. The P.S. is also telling. He says, I hope you weren't too scared all alone in that house when you lived there on your own before he moved in. So maybe he used to get scared alone in his cabin. Or maybe he's just worrying about you. He does say in another piece of high hearts dialogue, be careful out there. I do worry about you sometimes. There are people in this world who would take advantage of you. Take advantage of you? How? Because you're a nice person? The player hasn't shown any kind of naivety, so I think that this dialogue and what he writes in the letter are kind of just showing that he worries about you even if it's not necessarily founded, because he cares. That's how it manifests. Letter number 2. My dear Fiona, the first reading went well, though the audience was a bit smaller than I'd hoped. Still, I sold enough copies of the book to pay for my bug-infested hotel room. In a few hours, I leave for Zuzu City. If yesterday's reading was a warm-up, this next one will be a true napalm blast. I miss you very much. Remember to eat well. Oh, and don't forget the leftover crab cakes I put in the fridge. Love, Elliott. So at this point in the game, when you read this letter, it spawns crab cakes into your fridge, so that's pretty cool. Free food. His book tour is so far being painted as very unglamorous. Not a lot of people have shown up. His hotel room is full of bugs. It's interesting how far the writing goes to have his success be modest. Like he says the book's not a bestseller. The book tour is very small. It could have easily had his book explode and now he's a famous author. But it didn't, and I like the realism. It feels more conscious and deliberate to have his success be modest, as opposed to just run away. He seems in good spirits. He could easily complain to you about his situation, but he doesn't. He just shows apprehension for the next reading. And he's still worrying about you. Very sweet. Letter number 3. My sweet Fiona, last night in Zuzu City was quite the experience. It seems there's a large literary scene here. A few dozen people showed up at my reading. I even signed a couple of autographs. It's strange to be seen as someone important. It's all a matter of framing, a grand illusion. For truly, I am no one special. Only your devoted Elliott, as always. Currently I'm alone in my hotel room, ingesting a Joja value meal. Should this be called food or edible matter? I needn't long brood. It must be the latter. I look forward to returning home soon. Hope you enjoyed the crab cakes. Love, Elliott. So this one is interesting. It slightly goes against what I said in the last one about it being modest. I've never been to a book reading, but I'd assume that a few dozen is a pretty decent turnout. But it's decent. It's not like huge and explosive, you know? It's not packed. So it's still quite humble. And he gets asked to sign autographs, which I would assume is just signing copies of the book. It's kind of funny. He's making this statement of it's strange to be seen as important. I'm only Elliott. But who said he was important? Who said they were autographs and not book signings? Like, if you're at a book reading and you buy a copy of the book, you're going to get the guy to sign it, if only because it makes the book worth more money, not because you're like some super fan. So it's like he still does have that inflated ego, but his conscious mind is trying to be humble. It's like he's fighting against the ego, but he can't help that it still colours the way that he views the world. The fact that he describes himself as only your devoted Elliott kind of implies that he's happy to be no one special because he's so happy in his life with you. But there's still the element in this letter of the unglamorous book tour with his Joja value meal. Joja is a big corporation in Stardew Valley. I guess it's supposed to be kind of like Walmart. Like, the player character used to work at the big corporate headquarters of Joja before deciding to move to Stardew Valley. And there's a Joja Mart in town that's putting the independent store out of business. So a Joja value meal is just like a really cheap ready meal that's kind of gross. So yeah, more kind of unglamorous elements to his trip. It's a nice little update from Elliott. The addition of the description of the meal is a nice touch. Whenever my partner and I are away from each other, we're always like, oh, what did you have for dinner? Or I had a really nice meal. It's just those little things that you update each other on in relationships because it makes you feel like you're there with each other. And this letter makes us feel like we're there with Elliott, eating the stinky meal. Okay, this next letter is where it all changed for me. Are you ready? In dreams, when graced with lofty view, I gaze upon the sunlit sea. What distant shores I've travelled to, but time now clouds my memory. There is but one eternal place, where I shall someday pass beyond. In Valley Dear, where my love waits, our little home beside the pond. Elliott. This is so cute. It's so nice. It's so nice. When I played this scene for the first time, I remember just saying out loud, I get it now. Like, I genuinely just never saw the appeal of him before, but this is the sweetest thing. First of all, iambic tetrameter on point. So let me dust off my poetry analysing brain. I don't think I've done this since GCSE. I'll give it a go. Hi. Meow. There we go. This is going to happen every video. Yes, it is. He's just one of those kind of cats. Okay, I'm just going to start analysing the poem. I'm sorry if you can hear him purring. So when he's dreaming, he has a lofty view, meaning he can kind of see everything in his life at once. And his life is represented by the ocean, be that because he used to live by the sea or because it's like ever-changing and tumultuous. The memories are there of things he's done and seen, but time clouds his memory, meaning these things seem out of focus and kind of hazy and hard to remember. They slip away from him easily. In the second stanza, he focuses all his attention on one particular shore, one memory, one place, and that's his home with you on the farm. There is only one eternal place, aka one that won't ever slip from his memory like the others, one thing that's static in the ocean of change. It's the place where he will someday pass beyond, meaning he intends to grow old and die living here with you. In Valley Dear, the valley is dear to him. Where my love waits, that's you, the player. It's also a nice use of the term of endearment dear, right before he then uses the different one, my love, showing that he feels strongly about you as well as strongly about the valley itself. Then there's a colon, and we get the answer that the stanza has been building to, the answer to what the eternal place is. Our little home beside the pond. God, Elliott, that's so fucking cute. Oh, isn't he a good boy? Isn't he a good boy? He loves you. Our little home beside the pond. I have my beef with Elliott, okay? I think his book is bad. I'm mad that he bought me a wine. But this is fucking beautiful. Like, he needs some more punctuation in there somewhere, but this is just so endearing. He's just sitting alone in a hotel room writing a poem about how he wants to grow old and die with you. He's been gone for like 4 days. And he's just like, nothing is more important than my wife/husband. All of my other memories fade away. It's so romantic. It's so well written as well. 10 out of 10. I love it. I love my foppish husband. This makes me think as well about the 8 heart scene. What I said about how it was kind of a missed opportunity to characterize him through his book, through his writing. Imagine if his book reading had been something like this. Not a love poem, obviously, but something that just represented him as a character, that showed his actual skill with words and some of his thoughts and feelings. It makes me wonder why he isn't just a poet. He always talks about writing poetry. He's obviously very good at it, better than prose. Maybe it's that capitalism brain. Poetry collections don't sell as well as novels do. Or maybe that's my capitalism brain. Maybe poetry can just be his hobby. Okay, we've got 2 more letters to go. My dear Fiona, I won't bore you with any more details about my readings. They are mostly the same. I'm sure your time has been much more exciting. I can't wait to return and see what progress has been made. On these long travels between towns, I amuse myself by closing my eyes and envisioning the farm. I see kegs pulsing with sweet wine, a furnace ablaze with precious ore, and our little kitchen with the smell of cinnamon and nutmeg. There's a lot to enjoy. Just don't stay out too late in the mines, my love. It's dangerous in there. If you must go, bring plenty of food. Love, Elliott. So this one is interesting if we think back to that 6 heart scene where he said he wants to experience real life. You'd think that travelling from town to town and meeting new people and talking about his work would be just the thing he wanted, but it seems like he absolutely just cannot stop thinking about the farm and coming home. It really inspires him, it really makes him happy, and he worries about you some more, which is very cute. He describes the readings as the same, and he says he won't bore you, which kind of implies that he's starting to find them boring himself. I would find them boring if I had to read Elliott's book every day. Alright, final letter. Oh, bye Stinky. My dear Fiona, this will be my last letter before I return home. I've had a fine trip, though nothing too exciting. It's been nice to meet people who enjoy my work, but I'm eager to return home. I look forward to the comfort of our little house, the satisfying farm work, a home-cooked meal, and most of all, cozying into the flannel sheets with you. See you soon. Love, Elliott. So this one is kind of more of the same. He wants to come home, he misses you. I guess it's notable that he makes a point to say, most of all, cozying into the flannel sheets with you. He's mostly been daydreaming about the farm itself, so you'd be forgiven for just thinking he kind of misses the farm, but he makes sure to emphasise he misses you, most of all. So when you wake up the next morning in the game, you get this cutscene of him returning home. He's there when you wake up. The player jumps out of bed and you kiss. Elliott says he missed you. He's had enough of the big city and much prefers being here with you. He says it's back to the old routine again. He's got some chores to catch up on. And that's it. That's the end of the 14 heart. Our fop husband is back home. So that last scene, I like it. I think routine is often frowned upon. Back to the same old routine is kind of meant to be a negative statement, but life most of the time is just routines. Get up, go to work, make dinner, go to sleep. Routine isn't always a bad thing, and it seems like Elliott really likes your routine. He starts on his chores at 6 a.m. literally as soon as he gets home, like he's missed them. I think the married life of the player and Elliott is really sweet. He gets a lot of happiness from the peace and quiet, the predictability. The short amount of time he spent in the city quenched him, but he's mostly just glad to be home. You know that feeling when you get back home from a trip and you lay in your bed or you sit on your sofa and you're like, I'm so glad to be home. I love that feeling, and it's a feeling you get so much more intensely if you have a partner waiting for you or pets or kids probably, I don't know. He was excited to go on the book tour, but he missed you so much. And he's so happy to be home, and it's reaffirmed to him that there's no place he'd rather be. If we take this in context with the rest of his story, it's the idea that he had this inflated sense of ego. He moved here to be in his ivory tower, but ultimately he's found happiness on this farm with, a single other person, not much notoriety to his name. He was probably seeking fame and fortune with the book initially, but he's found that that's not what he needs to be happy. He just needs a person that he loves and a little home beside the pond. King. So just overall for the 14 heart event, I really love the direction that it took. For a 14 heart event, it's really taking some risks. Elliott is missing from the game for an entire week. No other 14 heart event does that. No other heart event does that. And it's so effective. It's very impactful. Absence makes the heart grow fonder. You miss him when he's away because you're so used to having him around in the game. And you're kind of happy when he gets back. And the fact that it's a series of letters is really creative. I think it's really unique. It's unique to this character. It's like a throwback to love letters, which is kind of a lost art form at this point. We get to see more of his writing than we ever have before. We get to see a lot of his feelings because he's apart from you. It's kind of a conflict, it's kind of an inciting incident that he has to go away for the tour. And therefore we see how he responds to and deals with that conflict by writing you a bunch of cute letters and missing you a lot. I mentioned in the last video how the 14 heart events were added a few years after the game came out. So with some characters like Abigail, they can feel a little bit tacked on. But I think this one with Elliott is the perfect way to do it. Alex's 14 heart event was the conclusion to his through line. Abigail's through line kind of concluded at the 10 heart event, so the 14 heart event felt a little bit added on. Elliott's through line also kind of concluded at 10 hearts, where he's solidifying that idea that you have to make ties instead of isolate yourself in order to be happy and inspired. But his 14 heart event just kind of takes that idea and runs with it. It's not really a continuation of his storyline. It's a bonus. It's kind of an elaboration. We just get to see this little guy pour his heart out to you. So 2 to 10 hearts, you've got the setup almost, and then 14 hearts feels like the payoff. I never thought I'd see the day where I was just gushing about Elliott for so long. So we're almost at the end here. All that's left is his summit dialogue and ultimately our divorce from Elliott. Overall, I do think a lot of the elements of the Elliott storyline are a bit weak, especially the thing where you choose his book genre, and I still can't get over the sexist bar thing. Like, I don't really know how that's still in the game, to be honest. It sticks out to me so much, and for the longest time, it just made me dislike him as a character and just completely write him off. And I'm sure it turned a lot of other people off as well, mostly women. But if you keep going, then there's this really sweet conclusion where he just seems absolutely on top of the world, living life on the farm with you. He's a good guy. He always tries his best. He's so appreciative of everything you do for him. So we're just going to go through a few more lines of his married dialogue. At the egg festival, he tells you, "I enjoy seeing you so relaxed, my dear." And if you ask him to dance at the flower dance when you're married, he says, "Yes, could I refuse that soft, kind face, the touch of springtime's sweet embrace?" At the Feast of the Winter Star, aka Christmas, he says, "You don't need to get me anything. You've already given me the greatest gift of all." Just the cutest little guy. And he also has a few dialogue lines about change. "The rain makes me think of my old life by the ocean. Change is a part of life. That's okay. All good things must come to an end, including the joyful days of summer. The key to happiness is to accept change without judgment." And I'm wondering about how change as a theme fits into his storyline. We haven't had that really come up so far. Him worrying about change, him struggling to accept it or anything like that. But I guess that's not necessarily something he's struggled with or had to learn. Maybe that's something he's just always believed. You know, he moved all the way out here to Stardew Valley. That was a big change. And similarly, he's open to the change of moving in with you and the seasons changing. I guess it also goes back to the 14 Heart poem a little bit, how he described his life as being like a sea, which kind of represents, you know, it's always changing. That saying about you can't step in the same river twice. I guess maybe there is some stuff about change that we can pick out. He spent the entire year when he was not writing, being isolated and not necessarily changing anything. You know, you'd think after 1 month of not being able to write, you'd be like, let me do something different, but he just stayed like that for a whole year. So maybe it is that he learned to change, and in letting the player into his life, in breaking that isolation, he had to realise that change is good. I don't know, we're kind of working backwards here, but I don't necessarily mind that it's not a theme that's like consistent. I think it's okay for that just to be like a small aspect of his character that only comes out a few times. So Elliott's summit dialogue is, "Heh, it just dawned on me. We've reached the summit, but not just physically, metaphorically as well. How poetic." And that just kind of sums it up, right? Summit means the highest point of a hill or mountain. So he feels like he's reached the highest point of life here with you. He's just fucking stoked to be with you, man. He's living his best life. Enough said. So then I divorced him. Should I take this? I'm gonna take it. Divorce. Oh, that's funny. I'm gonna start doing that. When you divorce someone, they only have one line of dialogue they will ever say to you ever again. Elliott's is, "Why do you torment me? Can't you see that you've shattered all my hopes and dreams?" So that leads on well from the summit dialogue. You're married, he's on top of the world, literally and metaphorically. You leave him, you shatter all his hopes and dreams. He was talking earlier about ties, so presumably he has all these hopes and dreams about you and your future, where your relationship will go, putting more ties down. And he loves your boring little life filled with chores. He said in the poem he wants to grow old and die with you. So those are hopes and dreams that you have also shattered. I'm sorry, Elliott, I still have 9 more people to go. Okay, that is the end of the deepest dive into Elliott from Stardew Valley. I hope that you have enjoyed it. I have been through a lot of emotions Hopefully you didn't hear the fact that everyone on my street decided to use their power tools today. So yeah, as I said, we still have 9 more to go. So join me next time as we do Emily. Subscribe to my channel so that you don't miss it. Give the video a little like. Leave me a cute comment. Tell me what your favourite thing about Elliott is. Is it the chin? Is it the hair? Is it whatever he's got going on here? Did you like my side parting? Are you glad that I changed it? Anyway, have a nice day. Bye. Goodbye. My lonely neighbours.